Right, welcome back to the presentation of Tale of Tamari, where we are continuing with chapter 9 to chapter 12. Chapter 9, our setting is the border, Tamari's home, school, and childline office. So here's the plot summary. Aunt Loveness has a difficult journey because her passport has expired. Her emergency travel documents have a problem, and the border officials are not patient with her. So Aunt Loveness, as we know, the aunt to Kuda and Tamari, is preparing to come to see Tamari and Kuda, but now she's having a difficult journey because her travel documents have expired and she's having a very hard time to move to the country. So being Christmas time, buses were few and far apart. The coming of Aunt Loveness has changed a lot of things for the better as she brings clothes, food, letters from relations, and Christmas gifts for the children. So after all these difficulties, she manages to come and see the children. So she has brought so many things: clothes, food, letters from the relations, and Christmas gifts for the children. So they have got a relief at the end. She also cleans the house and arranges the furniture in a special way, and she makes sure that the children have enough food. Now she's doing it as a parent now, the real parent, the real mother, as mothers do. So she's there to do everything at home so that these two children can find comfort at last after so much suffering that they have gone through. She as well chats up the lodgers and neighbors. Aunt Loveness helps Tamari to find a place in secondary school. She meets the headmaster who says that the school might help with a bursary. So we see that she has really changed everything for Tamari and Kuda because she finds her a new school where the girl can learn and potentially have a better future. They also visit the childline officer, which would help and later buys school uniform, blazers, schools, books, stationery, and other necessities. So all these are courtesy of Aunt Loveness. Then Uncle Banda is not happy with Aunt Loveness because she refused to play customary love games when they were young. She has come unexpectedly to take charge of everything. She chats up the neighbors and the lodgers. As would expect, this one, much as he's Tamari's uncle, but he is not happy to see Tamari having a better life alongside Kuda because he now thinks that all the plans that he had to sell the house and to take control of everything has now fallen into Aunt Loveness's hands. So now he hates this one, not only because of that, but because during their youth, Aunt Loveness refused to play some love games, some customary love games with him. So that anger is still there inside him. And she as well trots off to the childline office, and Uncle Banda is not sure how she would react when she hears his plans of selling the house. So he's afraid of the law taking its course if the people realizes what his evil plan is. So Aunt Loveness is the one who is in all this, who is planning all this, and Uncle Banda is also worried that maybe he might face the law because of what he's planning to do. We go to themes in chapter 9. Our first theme is positive intervention on orphanage. So Aunt Ravni's intervention into the children's lives has changed everything for the better, because as a parent, he has shown us some positive intervention on orphanage. Not only we should not only leave this to the organizations, but we can also help as relatives, even as friends. So Aunt Ravnis is showing us a good example in this regard. From there, we go to character analysis, where we're going to analyze some of characters that we have seen in this chapter. First is Aunt Ravnis. This one is determined and go-getter. Why? Because she continues with journey despite hardships, so that she can see the children and help them. So we saw that she met a lot of difficulties at the border because of her travel documents, but again she pushed on until she reached the children. So she is determined. Number two, she's a game changer. Why? Because her coming has changed the children for the better. So the children are able to see right at the end of the tunnel because of her. So we can describe her as a game changer, somebody who comes in and changes everything for the better. Then Kuda, this one is patient. Why? Because he's not envious of the goodies happening, as he knows that his time will come. As we see that Aunt Ravnis has found a school for Tamari, but Kuda doesn't react in a violent way because he knows that her sister should get things first before him because he's younger. So he's patient compared to many children that we see around. Onwards, we go to chapter 10. And here our setting is Tamari's home. So we're going to see events that happen at Tamari's home. Here's our plot summary. Aunt Mbabanda complains of Uncle Banda's wayward behavior since he has not been home for a week. So this is Uncle Banda's wife. So she complains about this husband's behavior because he hasn't been home for a week. Let's see where he has gone. So whenever he comes to collect rent, he returns home after several nights. This makes Aunt Banda to cry, saying that it is the deceased house that has caused the change in her husband's behavior. So now we see that Uncle Banda's rent, the rent that she collects, rentals that he collects from the house, has driven him to wayward behavior because he's always spending several nights away from home because of the same. So Aunt Banda is not amused with that because she cries every time that happens. So she sees that it is the deceased house that has contributed to all that behavior change. Then she furthermore reveals that Uncle Banda does not mean any good for the house, and she advises Aunt Ravnis to remain single, since marriage is nothing but problems for many people. So we see that Aunt Banda now is not happy with marriage. She has given up the ambition of being happy. So she also advises Aunt Ravnis never to get married because in marriage, as she has experienced it, is full of problems. As we see what Uncle Banda is doing to her. Then Aunt Ravnis disagrees and reveals that it's just that she has not met the right man. So this is the response that Aunt Ravnis gives, that yes, you might be right, but now it might be happening that I haven't met the right man, because we have seen so many marriages that are working very well. So Aunt Ravnis is trying to disagree with Aunt Banda on the issue of marriage, that it's a waste of time. She says no, it's not a waste of time, but it's all about meeting the right person. Then Aunt Banda advises Tamari to take time when she wants to marry. So she's full of advice. When Tamari hears this and reflects on what boys and men such as Mandra, Clever, and the customers have been doing to her, she's in a big doubt. So she's able also to reflect on several people whom she has met and whom she can analyze their behavior in relation to what Aunt Banda advises. On one hand, she thinks of nasty occasions like the boys who teased her when her dress got wet during her menstrual period, Nkoma Mandra who grabbed her on the door, she locked herself in the toilet, and two drunkards who said crude about her and grabbed her. So she's able to think of all these men who have done bad things to her. And on the other hand, she thinks of the good occasions, like when Nkoma Mandra smiles and lending money when in trouble, and Clever's pity, protection, and smiles towards her. So she's able to distinguish two kinds of men, these men here and these men here. So Nkoma Mandra who portrays two sides of himself as a kind man, as well as somebody who wants to take advantage of her, as well as Clever who is showing pity and protection. So she's trying to balance what Aunt Banda says and what she has seen so far in terms of analyzing men's behavior. From there we go to themes in this chapter, and our first one is money and infidelity. So this is shown by Aunt Banda, who holds that Uncle Banda's unfaithfulness is due to the money earned from the house. So Uncle Banda has changed his behavior because of money. They say, give a man money and power and see what he's capable of. So we have seen that Uncle Banda has changed his behavior because he gets extra money that he can use for paying prostitutes and the like, and other women as well. So money has contributed to his infidelity. Then marriage as a theme as well. The chapter reveals that most people go into marriage as a solution to their problems. We have seen this in Aunt Banda's comments, that marriage brings problems because she thinks at first that marriage is there to offer solutions to her problems. But now she is disillusioned. She doesn't find what she expects in marriage. Number two, on the same marriage, Aunt Banda learns too late of the need to take time before going into marriage. So sometimes it's about time. We rush into marriage not knowing that what we are going to find there is not what we expect. So sometimes it's good to take our time and wait for our time to come so that we find the right man, as Aunt Loveness is alluding to. Next is character analysis. Aunt Loveness is sympathetic. She sits Aunt Banda's predicament and comforts her. So she's there to provide comfort to Aunt Banda, who complains about the abusive husband that she is having. So she is sympathetic as a fellow woman in this case. Then Aunt Banda is sincere and honest. Why do we say this? Because she recounts all her problems as they are and confesses that her husband intends to do something ungodly with the house. So she's able to reveal, that's sincere, to reveal all the bad ambitions of her husband, and at the same time she is honest about how she lives at the house. She's able to reveal the problems that she's facing. So that's sincerity and honesty. So she's honest and she's also sincere. At the same time, she's also thoughtful, why she's able to draw lessons from her situations and advises Tamari accordingly. So she doesn't give Tamari a wrong advice. She gives her the best advice that she can have based on her experience. So she's thoughtful. She thinks well of Tamari's future. That's why she's able to advise her based on how she has experienced marriage. From there we go to chapter 11, and our setting is Tamari's school. Here's our plot. Tamari is struggling with cross country because she feels she is about to faint and she needs something to lean on. So cross country is a competition where people run across a very large distance. So Tamari is participating in that at school. So now she's tired and she's about to faint. Let's see what follows. Clever joins Tamari and tells her to walk as he would not write her name. So remember, this is a class monitor and he writes names of those offenders that are doing things contrary to this school's instructions. So now Tamari, as she has stopped, she's supposed to be written down. Her name is supposed to be written down by Clever, but Clever doesn't do that. Why? Let's see. When some boys mock them, Tamari is strengthened and finishes the cross country. So they sit there, people try to mock them. Remember, Clever is the boy who refused to write Tamari's name when Tamari was read at school in the first chapter. So they mock them, they sing a lot of songs about them, but Tamari is strengthened now, and together with Kuda, they finished the cross-country race. Then at the end of the race, Tamari sits down to chat with Clever, who promises to be a good friend. Remember, Tamari needs a lot of friends, so Clever is volunteering to be one of them. Then Linda urges her not to get involved in any bad thing with boys, and Tamari promises Linda to be good. So after seeing this scene here, Tamari is sitting down with Clever. Linda, as her best friend, comes in to urge her or to warn her that she shouldn't go an extra mile, that this should only be friendship because they have promised each other that they should not engage in any premarital sex with the boys. So Tamari assures her that everything is going to be all right, that there is nothing going on between the two. It's a good friend, Linda. Advises her friend not to engage in bad things. Themes. Our first theme is extracurricular activities. So most students have a negative attitude towards sports, clubs, and society, as evidence from what Clever and Tamari say about sports. Yes, most of the students may agree with this statement here because most of these extracurricular activities are hated by students, especially when there's a lot of energy involved, like running, maybe even clubs. They've got so much negative attitudes towards them. So this has been also portrayed here, where Kuda and Clever and Tamari have got a lot of negative things about this cross country, which they have to run a lot of distance, they have to faint on the way, they have to collapse, things like those. So it's our theme about extracurricular activities and the attitude that students mostly have against these activities. Number 2, we have got friendship and love affairs as our next theme. Now, in most African schools, there are rumors and gossip about marital affairs among boys and girls due to failure to differentiate friendship from love affairs, healthy from unhealthy relationship. Now, this theme is very common amongst teenagers nowadays, that whenever you see a boy and a girl together, the only thing that we think is that these are engaged in a sexual relationship. And the same happens here, where Tamari and Clever are seated somewhere, but the boys, most students think that they are engaged in a sexual relationship. And even Linda as well is concerned about the same, that they are engaged in premarital affairs, because that's their attitude generally, as it is our attitude in most African societies. So we can't differentiate between a normal friendship or a love affair whenever a boy and a girl are involved. That's our second thing. We go to character analysis. Our first character is Tamari, who is described as determined. Why? Because despite being dog-tired, she manages to finish her course when Sam teased her. So that's determination from her. She's determined to finish the race despite receiving those chantings from the fellow learners. Number two, Linda, who is advisory and cautious. Why? Because when she senses that Tamari and Clever's friendship may not be healthy, Linda reminds her of their promises to have nothing to do with boys. So she is cautious. At the same time, she is advisory. She's able to give concrete advice to her friend because she doesn't want her to go astray. So she's very cautious. Then Clever, this one is sympathetic because he tells Tamari to walk and will not write down her name upon seeing that she is struggling with cross country. So she's very sympathetic, even though he is a class monitor, but he doesn't write Tamari's name. Then friendly and amicable, he befriends Tamari politely and promises to be good. We go to chapter 12. So our setting here is Tamari's home, the police station, courtroom, and prison. So all these places is where we are going to see the action taking place in this chapter. Now, the plot goes like this. Thugs attack Tamari's home. A brick crashes through the window and lands near Kuda's head. A hosepipe is pushed through the crashed window and spreads water everywhere, and a burning match is thrown through the window. So it's an attack. It's in the middle of the night, and all of a sudden, a brick crashes through the window and lands near Kuda's head, missing his head, of course. And a hosepipe is inserted through the window, and water is everywhere in the room. Then after that, there's a warning message. Next time, it will be paraffin. So this is uttered outside. So it means they're saying that next time they will put paraffin inside the house and probably burn the house because paraffin is very flammable. And then when Aunt Loveness asks who the thugs are, a voice simply responds that they know what they do. So presumably we can imagine where these people are coming from, because we have seen that Uncle Banda is not pleased with the coming of Aunt Loveness. So everybody in the house wakes up to the commotion and assemble at the sitting room. So they're at the sitting room trying to discuss what next after this attack. Then the police arrive 3 hours later after being called. They call the police. They send someone to call the police, and 3 hours later the police arrive. Most staff had gone to man a roadblock in anticipation of mass action to protest against rising food and fuel costs. So concurrently, there's this development here where the country is facing an acute shortage of fuel, and also their rising food prices. So the police are very few. Most of them are going to quell this situation, and then a few police arrive at the scene where there is an attack. They ask of the suspect, and Mdala gave Uncle Banda's name. That's expected because Uncle Banda is the one who has been on the forefront of abusing these two children. So it's their prime suspect. Now at the police station, Uncle Banda has a lot going on in his mind, which include how the police had traced the incident to him, why he hired thugs and paid them before the dust settled. So now Uncle Banda has been arrested. He's at the police. He's being interrogated there, and now he's trying to reflect on how the incident had got out of hand, how they have traced him to this end. So he's becoming to be worried. He also regrets why he had been busy with his brother's house instead of keeping his job, the loss of his job when the bosses hear about this. So a lot of worries are coming in. He's regretting why he has done this, why he has paid the bandits to go and ransack the house. Again, at the same time, he's also worried what his wife will say upon hearing this news, and what if they locked him up. So at first, he doesn't think about all these things. It is now that he's coming to think of these things after what he has done. Despite Aunt Loveness' pleadings, Uncle Banda is imprisoned. Later, Aunt Loveness, Tamari, Aunt Banda visit Uncle Banda in prison, where they talk to him through a glass pane using a microphone. Now, Aunt Loveness decided to plead with the police so that they should release him, since he's a relative, but the police doesn't do that. They make sure that the law takes its course by imprisoning him. So one day they go there to visit Aunt Loveness, Tamari, Aunt Banda, to visit him in prison, so they talk through a microphone. Uncle Banda looked haggard, or looked weak. His eyes had deep, distant look. His cheeks were hollowed and his hands were bony. So this is a description of him in prison. You know, prison life can be hard because the food is not the same that you eat at home. So Uncle Banda has changed in his physical appearance because of the conditions that are there in prison. Uncle Banda appears to be suffering, but he talks a lot, asks of Tamari's schoolwork, Kuda and Fatima, his daughter, about Rogers and how long Aunt Loveness would be staying. So now Uncle Banda is a worried man, because now he seems to be changing, because it's now that he asks about Tamari's work, but all along he didn't care about it. And he asks about Kuda, about Fatima, his daughter. Now he's trying to turn into a good person, but we all know that he is pretending, because all along he has been portraying his bad side towards the children, but now he's trying to show his good part because he has been arrested. So he also asks about Rogers and how long Aunt Loveness will be staying, obviously because he doesn't want this one to be in the country, because she is there to disturb her plans. He looks longingly at Aunt Banda, who is a few months pregnant. So now He's worried. His wife is pregnant and he's in prison. What might follow next? Themes. There's a theme of ruthlessness. Why, when thugs attack Tamali's home, they do it cruelly, breaking the window and then getting a hosepipe into the house and then pouring water all over. That's cruelty. That's being ruthless. It's ruthlessness that is being portrayed here as a theme by these thugs. Well, that's it. Next, it will be chapter 4, and that's going to be our final chapter. Thank you very much.
Simutaya nthawi yanu kufunafuna maphunziro muzakhala wotumidwa moyo wanu wonse. Ngati simuphunzira anthu azingokutumani. Ajala kalime, ajala kuchwe manyazi, ajala katende yanti, ndipo anthu ophunzira wandu wotuma so kwambiri. Ndiye ngati simuphunzira, skulu akuyikirani apa mukhala otumidwa.